Hello, good evening, and a very warm welcome to Rangers Radio.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Rangers Radio. Join myself, Oxtear, on the show this evening as our distinguished guest, David Hurst, joined us. Evening, David.
Good evening. Thanks very much for inviting me on. It's great to be here.
No, mate. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to do this, mate. How are you, mate? How are you?
I was going to say I'm good, but then the season started. So I was fine until Friday's game started,
right.
But
listen, mate,
I'm sure things will get better.
Everybody else has their tuppence worth. What was your take on it, mate? Quickly.
I'm very much different from anybody else. It's a team that's not got enough pace in it, no enough penetration in it, no enough width in it, no enough creativity in it. And if you add that together with a defence that still does stupid things now and again, then you're going to keep dropping points until you get it right.
Fair enough, mate. That word creativity keeps coming up, but you're the creative one on here tonight, mate. Yeah, but...
Very good.
Look, just so the listeners know, mate, just quickly, what's your Rangers story? Are you a new fan, an old fan, brought up Rangers? Just tell the listeners, mate. What's your Rangers story?
So I was born in 1963, not long after the Jim Baxter Masterclass at Hampden against Celtic in the Scottish Cup final. My dad was born and bred.
It wouldn't have been 9 months after that game, would it?
No, not quite. My dad was Rangers dad, used to run a Rangers supporters bus. The first book he ever gave me was Rangers the New Era. I went to my first game when I was 4 in 1968. I've been steeped in Rangers probably since before I was even born. never mind after I was born. So first game in 1968. First cup final was the Tom Forsyth win and goal in 1973. I've been to 2 European finals. I didn't manage to get to Barcelona. I've been to the last 2 for the season ticket since before Souness was there. My first season ticket was one of the Rover season tickets in the early 80s.
Rover, yep.
Yeah. So good times, bad times, and bloody awful times. I can go through them all. But without doubt, I think you can call me an old school rather than a modern Rangers supporter.
That's fair enough, mate. I think there's a lot of people listening to the show will identify with that, mate, myself included, mate. We know that society's changed, but we've maybe no changed. You know? The Rangers the New Era, that was a right comedy read there.
Yeah, well, I was in 19. It came out just after we won the cup in 1966. Kai Johansson's goal. So my boyhood heroes were guys like my first hero was actually Andy Penman, because he scored the first goal that I ever saw Rangers score. But my hero really when I was growing up was Derek Johnson, who I still regard as the greatest all-round player I've ever seen playing for Rangers.
DJ,
yeah. He was the man for me. I just wish Jock Wallace had stayed longer, because the minute he left, Big Derek went downhill.
I think he actually got a road deal on Argentina, 78, mate. Yeah,
without doubt.
I mean, I've gone in the park in the first 2 games was just mental. But look, this is the 5th Rangers book you've done, and I'll run through them, mate.
Mm-hmm.
You've done Tory, and it's no politics. It's about Tory Gillett, yeah.
Yep.
You're really good back with names that we were brought up with our fathers and grandfathers. Then you've done the 77-78 season, remarkable season. For me, the player is a big DG scored the goals, but young Bobby Russell coming in.
Bobby Russell. Yeah.
You've got a paperback. It's now the story of the Rangers players of yesteryear. You know.
Yeah.
Again, countless names, brilliant read, mate. And then you've got Rangers, the Kings of the League Cup, which we were. Yeah. It was a competition.
Yeah.
Dominated. Now, to write one book, mate, is hard enough, and to study it and do it, but to go and do 1, 2, 3, 4, and now your 5th coming is remarkable, mate. What triggered the passion? Was it something that was always in you, or something you always wanted to do?
if you go back to the 1980s when fanzines came out,
All right, okay.
I wrote articles for the original Follow fanzine, Big
Right,
Mark
okay.
Dingwall's
Well,
fanzine.
I'm to
And
the West End, so obviously I know that fanzine very well, yeah. All
yeah,
right.
so I wrote a few articles for that, and then when the fanzine went online and it became a message board on the internet, I wrote regular. It was usually history articles I would write. So I get my bee in my bonnet about something. So somebody would talk about this is the best Rangers team they've ever seen, and I would start writing articles about the team for the 60s or the team for the 30s and things like that. But anyway, so I started to get a bit of a liking for writing these articles, and a couple of folk in the message board said to me, "You should turn these into books because they're really good. They're really good reading." So I took early retirement in 2021, which meant that I had 40 hours a week spare that I didn't used to have, and I decided I would write. I'd try and write a book. And the first book I wrote was that one you mentioned about Rangers Player of Yesteryear. That was actually my first book. And a lot of it was based on articles I'd written for Follow.
You put it all together.
I turned it all together. So it was actually called the book itself was actually called 1872, because it was biographies of players. The first 18 players in it were all in the Hall of Fame, and the rest of them weren't in the Hall of Fame. So there was 72 biographies in it. The first 18 were in the Hall of Fame, the rest weren't. So 18 Hall of Fame, 72 in total. So it gave you this title of the book, and it seemed to go down reasonably well. Folk seemed to. I'm not saying folk bought it in their thousands or anything like that, but certainly the folk that did buy it seemed to enjoy it. And I just got the bug after that. I already had two other books in my mind that I wanted to write. I wanted to write about the League Cup because so many of my early memories, my favourite memories, were associated with winning the League Cup. So I wrote a book about that because that had never been done before. And it was a book of at that time, the 27 seasons we won the League Cup, a report of all the different games and the finals and stuff. And then I wanted to write a book about my favourite season when I was a boy, which was 1977-78. So, as you said, the season Bobby Russell, Gordon Smith, David Cooper all came into the team along with the established ones that were there, your John Greggs, your Sandy Jardins, your Alan McDonalds, etc. So I wrote that one, and then I got a phone call from Rangers Television. They've got a subdivision called RTV Studios who do a lot of historical documentaries about Rangers, and they started involving me in interviewing me for some of these documentaries. And one of the documentaries they did was about the Iron Curtain team of the late 40s, early 50s, and when that went out, Torry Gillick's granddaughter contacted Rangers Television and asked who the guy was that talked about Torry Gillick on it, which happened to be me.
Right.
Ian for Rangers Television put me in touch with Torry's granddaughter, and it turned out Torry's son just actually lives 10 minutes drive up the road from me, so I got to know him as well. And basically the family said to me, "Do you think there's enough in Torry Gillick's story to write about?" So, and when they started telling me about a lot of the stuff that happened to him off the pitch, I realised that there was a story in there. And there's another author who wrote Bill Struth's book, who wrote Tiger Shaw's book, called Ian Stewart, and Ian and I had already been talking about potentially sort of writing a book together about that team for the Iron Curtain team. So we eventually didn't write an Iron Curtain book, we wrote a Torry Gillick book together. So that was my 4 previous books, and then obviously there's this new one out now.
All right. So what brought that, the 66 to 69? What triggered the juices, if you like, mate? What triggered? What was it a personal thing, or you think they were hard done by, or you think there was just a story to sell?
It's a bit of both, really. So the first team I remember, have got any memories of, is the team in the late 1960s, who this book's about. And my old man, who's no longer with us, Although he loved the team in the early 60s most, he had a real thing about the team in the late 60s were a lot better than MD now talks about. He thought because they didn't win anything, that they were kind of regarded as just a really poor Rangers team. But when you actually dug into the results they got, the number of goals they scored, the number of times they beat Celtic, what they did in Europe, all these different things, apart from lifting trophies, they were actually a really good team with a lot of really good players. And actually, the guts of that team ended up winning a European trophy. So I thought their story had never really been told. And I decided to research it a little bit. And the more I looked into it, the more I straight away convinced myself that they were without doubt the best Scottish team in history that didn't win a trophy. And that's what I spoke to the publisher about, because I actually didn't know if the publisher would want to publish a book about a Rangers team that didn't win anything. Because most books are all about success, aren't they?
Yeah.
So the publisher was a little bit wary about it, basically saying, I get what the story is, but Rangers fans don't really put up with being second very well, so I'm not quite sure how many folk will actually buy it. But eventually they were persuaded to run a print copy of it. Now, this latest book is only having a print copy of half the number of my previous book. They'll only print the other half if it sells okay. So I'll find out. I'll find out whether there's a market out there for it or not.
But so for the people listening, it's maybe not looked at it and then maybe not looked at the Amazon. So give us a story. So it's the 66-67 season, the 67-68 season, and the 68-69 season. Correct?
Yeah, correct. Absolutely right.
It's they three seasons. By the way, I found out something today, but I think it was the 69 season never ended to August.
The Glasgow Cup final didn't get played
The
to the start of the following season.
Final,
Yeah.
I did not know that. Every day is a school day. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So the book starts at the start of season 1966-67, as you say, and it covers the next 3 seasons. And it's called The Nearly Men for a good reason, because when you go through the 3 seasons and you go through the different trophies that were available, both domestically and in Europe, a very good Rangers team didn't win anything that came close so often. And for me, it was a combination of bad timing, because I hate saying it, but they were up against probably the strongest Celtic team that's ever existed. I hate saying that, but I think it's got to be said.
Statistically, it bears that out, doesn't it?
Well, unfortunately, it does.
Whether we like it or not, mate. Yeah. But we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Well, we absolutely will leave it at that. So there was bad timing. They also had I don't know what you call it luck, but I'm going to call it bad luck. So there was a number of trophies that turned on little daft things like the weather, fixture pile-ups, penalty misses, bad refereeing decisions, all that kind of stuff. So there was these little bits, you could call it bad luck. And there was also decisions that Rangers made as a club, which they shot themselves in the foot 2 or 3 times. And if they hadn't done that, I'm convinced that they would have won at least a couple of trophies during that period of time. If I just give you a little example of why I think that they were unlucky. So everyone reveres the team for the early 60s. You know, the Richie Shearer, Caldo, Greg McKenna, Baxter. Yeah, everybody can rhyme that team off. 1963-64 was, if you like, the peak of that early 60 team when they won the treble. They won the treble and they won it with 55 points, and they lost 4 games out of 34 in the league. If I then talk about this period in my book, it took Rangers 68 games to lose 4 league games. Not 34, 68. And they actually, on one of the seasons, they finished with 61 points, which was 6 points more than the treble winning season did. One of the seasons they finished with 55, the same as the treble winning season did. Mm-hmm. And yet they finished second in both of them. It's the thing about timing that I'm talking about. So there was one season they went 33 league games without defeat. They only lost the last game of the season. They didn't lose the first 33 games. And yet they went into that last game knowing they weren't going to win the league.
Too many
Absolutely
draws.
incredible.
Too many
Yeah,
draws.
well, there's only 5 draws.
Aye.
So, but they went into the last game of that season having played 33 games with exactly the same record as Steven Gerrard's team a few years in 2021 did after 33 games. They had won 28 and drawn 5. Steven Gerrard's team were 20 odd points in front. That Rangers team were 2 points behind, and it was only 2 points for a win. It's amazing.
Right, so we kicked off the League Cup, the old League Cup sections. By the way, I think you can see the benefit of doing that for starting a campaign now before you start European time. Maybe everybody and how we do it, I don't know, but that's a whole different debate. I'm going to give you the team that day and get your thoughts on it, mate, because it started, and one of Foxy, who runs the show, one of his heroes made his debut. So the Rangers team that day started off the 66 season was Richie Johansson, Greg Miller, McKinnon, Smith, Henderson, Alex Smith, Jim Forrest, George McLean, and Davy Wilson. Now that's a team full of legendary names, mate. Yeah,
absolutely. And Willie Johnson was injured, which is why he wasn't playing. Which is why he wasn't playing. Yeah, how many of them's in the Hall of Fame? How many of them are regarded as club legends? Quite a lot of them, I would suggest.
Well, Kai Johansson wouldn't be a club legend because he wasn't raised, but he'd be classed as a club. When you score a winning goal in a cup final, particularly against a certain teammate, you're going to be classed as a legend, aren't you?
Well, Billy Ritchie's in the Hall of Fame, John Gregg's in the Hall of Fame. I'm trying to get through the team. Ronnie McKinnon's in the Hall of Fame, Dave Smith's in the Hall of Fame, Willie Henderson's in the Hall of Fame. So you've got
and Jim Forrest should be.
And Jim Forrest should be exactly. David Wilson, you said at the end of the season, the Hall of Fame. So that's a team that most seasons you would imagine would start the season as favourites, wouldn't you? You would imagine that. But it just so happened that for a couple of reasons, the team at the other end of the city had a more ruthless and relentless approach to football and had a more ruthless and relentless manager than we did.
Yeah, so we came out the League Cup, qualified, and then the League Cup, the league campaign started in '66, and it went right down to the wire. For those who don't know, I would imagine certain group of bears or certain generational know, it went to the last game, and we 2 games to go, and there's 25 days between the last league game and the European final, mate. So we played the last game, and we pushed them close, mate.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the season that they won everything, including the European Cup. I think it's probably fair to say that over the 34 games in the league that season, the better team did win it, which wasn't us. But if you look at the Rangers only lost 3 games, and 2 of them to Dunfermline, which is absolutely mind blowing. Alec Ferguson,
Dunfermline stopped, didn't they?
They did. They were a fine team at the time. Dunfermline, they won the Scottish Cup the following year. But those 2, you could argue those 2 defeats to Dunfermline, which cost us 4 points, was the difference because we actually finished 3 points behind Celtic. But I do think probably over the course of that season, we were never really on level terms with them that often. They were always just that little bit. We were always chasing them. I think the trophies that got away from us that season were the League Cup and the European Cup Winners' Cup. The League Cup, we played Celtic in the final. This actually sounds very much, for the anybody that remembers the 1990s, this is going to sound like Rangers and Celtic in reverse. But Celtic scored early and then hardly created another chance the rest of the day. Rangers missed 2 or 3 sitters and had a goal chalked off for very dubious reasons and lost 1-0.
There's a pattern here, mate. There's a pattern.
Yeah, well, you know how that Celtic got no decisions back in the 60s, you remember that? Well, they certainly got one that day. So, and that was the very first trophy of this whole book. You wonder how things would have went afterwards if they had won the first one. And Celtic hadn't won it. But that's the way it worked out. But without doubt, the the one that got away most was the European Cup Winners' Cup of 1967, because Rangers should absolutely have won that. Which sounds bizarre when you think that we played Bayern Munich in the final, but
in Germany.
In Germany, but Rangers were overwhelming favourites to win that, and they shot themselves in the foot in umpteen different ways to make sure we didn't win it. I don't know how much you want me to go through, but obviously that was the season.
Can I just ask you one question? Yeah,
of course you can.
But I accept your point when you see it, they scored a lot more goals than we did that season. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a game to go in the league, mate. We've got them at Ibrox.
Mm-hmm.
You would take that most times, wouldn't you? And all we had
but they had a game after it. They did another game to come.
Yeah, but we'd have still, if we'd have beat them, mate.
Yeah, we'd have went a point in front, and they had to win their last game if we had won it. But they'd have won it. They'd have won. If they had to win the last game, they'd have won it. I'm sure they would have done. Europe's the one that really annoys me when the more I research that season, because Rangers knocked out Borussia Dortmund early on, who were the holders, who had beat Liverpool in the final the year before, who had teams for the Germany team that reached the World Cup final in 1966. They were the favourites for the Cup Winners' Cup, and we beat them. And we didn't just beat them. We went across to Dortmund, only with a 1-goal advantage. Had a player injured after half an hour. There was no substitutes allowed in European football at that time. Had to play them with 10 men for an hour and still get through. That was probably one of Rangers' best European performances up until that point in our history. We got to the final, and by the time we got to the final, we had lost to Berwick, and the chairman had interfered with the running of the team and had insisted that our 2 top goal scorers never play for the club again. So Jim Forrest and George McLean get bulleted. Never played a competitive game for us again. Both were away before the season was finished. But Jim Forrest got replaced by his cousin, Alec Willoughby, who came in and played up front. And he scored 17 goals in 14 games, including hat-tricks and a 4-time and all kinds of stuff. He was on fire. Yet, in the semi-final of the European Cup Winners' Cup, second leg, Scott Simon, for reasons best known to himself, decided to drop Alec Willoughby and play a guy called Roger Hind up front, who was a centre-half, who was a defender. And it was on the basis that Roger Hind had played a reserve game against Dundee and scored 4 goals in it at centre-forward, which made him good enough to play in a European semi-final, allegedly. Simon had this thing in his, I think, a tactical thing that he liked, a big, strong centre-forward that was good in there, but that Willoughby wasn't that, which was one of the differences, I think, between Simon and Jock Stein, in that Stein adapted to European football, whereas I don't think Scott Simon did. So everybody talks about Forrest and McLean getting dropped. Interestingly, when you look at all the reports at the time and the newspapers at the time, the vast majority of the Rangers support actually agreed with it. They actually agreed with Forrest and McLean getting dropped. Although whether they agreed with them getting sold is another question, but they agreed with them getting dropped at the time. But anyway, we went into a European final without Jim Forrest, who scored 145 goals up until that point in 4 seasons. Without George McLean, who scored 80-odd goals in 3 seasons. Without Alec Willoughby, who scored 17 goals in 14 games. And we could have played Davy Wilson, who scored in the semi-final first leg and who could play centre-forward as well as left winger. We could have played him, but we didn't play him. We played Roger Hind, which meant we had up front, we had Roger Hind, and as inside forward, we had moved Dave Smith up there. So it was 2 defensive players playing up front against Franz Beckenbauer. Rangers absolutely dominated the game, had a goal disallowed, which most observers thought probably was a foul, but I suppose it could have went either way. But in effect, couldn't score, dominated, couldn't score because we had no forwards, and then sucker punch in extra time. Bayern Munich broke up the park and scored the only goal of the night. That should have been Rangers' first European trophy, and what made it worse was Celtic won the European Cup the Wednesday before it. Mm-hmm. So the Wednesday before, Celtic came back for Lisbon, or the Thursday before, and John Lawrence, the Rangers chairman, along with the Glasgow Provost and the chairman of the SFA, met Celtic and congratulated them, So John Lawrence went through that pain, that torture to do that. All the more determined the following week that Rangers were going to win the Cup Winners' Cup. But what did he do on the eve of the Cup Winners' Cup final? He held a press conference, and at that press conference, he absolutely slaughtered the Rangers squad. They're not good enough. They've not got enough strikers, and they've not got any good forwards. We should never be in a position that we're playing a defender up front in a European final. This is a disgrace. He sacked the chief scout, the great Jimmy Smith, the goal scorer for the 30s, 40s. I don't know what the team must have thought of the chairman slaughtering them in a press conference in the morning or the day before the game. But it couldn't have helped. We lost to Bayern Munich. A Bayern Munich who's not the Bayern Munich of today. They had never won the league ever up until that point in time. Although they did have some cracking players, Beckenbauer, Müller, and all that kind of stuff. That was the one that got away that season. And if Rangers had won that European trophy, you just wonder what that would have meant in terms of the seasons to come.
So, in my past life, I got to know Alec Willoughby really, really well, mate. Yeah, what a gentleman. And but I had the pleasure of chatting to him, just me and him, about that period of time, you know, and wasn't better. He just put it down to that's football, you know. Whether he was inside or not, I don't know.
Well, the day that Scott Simon told him he wasn't playing and Roger Hine was playing in his place, Willoughby put a transfer request in the next morning. And because he put a transfer request in, the board decided that he couldn't play again until they had discussed his transfer request, and they didn't discuss his transfer request after the final.
Right.
So if Simon had tried to change his mind and say maybe I will play, I don't think John Lawrence would have won.
Right. Okay. You learn something new every day, mate. You learn something new every day. Two things a day. But the reaction after Berwick, well, I mean, we've had it. We know what it's like in this sort of era. And we know after one league game, we do overreact sometime. I mean, obviously it was a big story at the time, yeah.
Yeah, oh jeez, it was national news. This wasn't Scottish back pages, this was national front pages. In fact, what do you call him? David Coleman used to present Grandstand. Apparently, that was his headline at the end of Grandstand that night. That the little Berwick Rangers had humiliated Glasgow Rangers in the Scottish Cup, and he was describing it as the biggest upset in world football history and stuff like that. So it's hard to imagine now the level of embarrassment and humiliation that Rangers as a club felt. And the reaction to it was probably also driven by the fans' reaction in Berwick towards the board. John Lawrence and his fellow board members got absolute pelters, as you would expect after a result like that. And I think he thought he had to be seen as doing something decisive. And the two forwards basically carried the can. They were accused of no trying. They were accused of all kinds of stuff, which it's almost like nonsense. They just had bad games, which can happen. The removal of Jim Forrest is something that, to this day, I don't think any Rangers fan could rationally justify.
No.
140 odd goals in 150 odd games. He had been through a little bit of a drought, but he was only 23 at the time. 23-year-old, you can't expect him to score, every game for on and on and on. Every striker goes through little patches that they don't score as often. He would have come back. It was madness. It was madness.
Yeah. Listen. So, am I right in picking up that you just think that Scott Simon, the football was changing? And maybe Scott Simon had just, Scott Simon, great Rangers team, but maybe we should have maybe looked to part ways maybe a bit sooner. Or are you saying that
it'd be very difficult. It'd be very difficult to justify sacking Scott Simon.
I'm not saying,
but what I genuinely do think is that he did not adapt to what was happening in football in the 1960s. European football was becoming bigger and bigger. Football was becoming more tactical. It was becoming different from what it had been in the 50s and 60s. You've got to remember, Scott Simon played in the 30s and 40s under Struth. He was a very traditional Scottish manager. He wasn't one for formations and tactics and team. He let the team captain do a lot of that. And he suddenly was up against, unfortunately, a Celtic manager who was willing to adapt and who did look around him and try to pick up information from across Europe. Jock Stein used to go and watch teams abroad. Scott Simon didn't start doing that for ages. And actually, it sounds terrible, but if you look back at the early 60s, that great Rangers team who everyone reveres, in 1962-63, they got absolutely annihilated by Tottenham in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And the following season, when they won the treble, they get absolutely annihilated by Real Madrid in Europe. And in both cases, tactically, it appeared that Simon was just not progressing, if you like. He wasn't no. So, for example, one of the things that comes out in the book actually is that there's this big discussion. Yeah, there's this big discussion in sports journalists and in newspapers about whether this new defensive 4-2-4 is the way to go, or whether we should stick to the good old-fashioned 5 forwards. 4-2-4 these days sounds a bit gung-ho, doesn't it? But that was regarded as a bit conservative. That's the formation that Celtic played. They played 4-2-4. We stuck with 5 up front for ages. It wasn't until Davy White came in that we started to tweak formations a bit more.
So would it be fair to say that you don't think Scott Simon was ever going to recover for Berwick Rangers? Yeah.
I think he might have recovered from Berwick if he'd won the Cup Winners' Cup.
Right. Okay. That's a fair point, mate. And by the way, any young bears out there that's listening, the Rangers Bayern Munich, you'll find it on YouTube. You'll find that there's about 30 minutes highlight, and I'm sure the full game's there to be fun as well.
I think the full game's on actually. What's he called? The World Cup commentator, Kenneth Wilson home. He commentates on it because it was live in the BBC through Britain.
I did like just springing forward. I loved the German commentary when we played Bayern Munich in '72.
Yeah.
Right, so we move on to the 67-68 season, mate, and the team's okay in paper, yeah, as you said, yeah.
Absolutely.
We're huffing and puffing, and
we actually made a couple of attacking signings before the season started. In fact, 3. After that final, it was pretty obvious Rangers needed attacking players. So we bought Alec Ferguson from Dunfermline, the famous Sir Alex, when he was a player. He came in as a centre forward. We brought in a winger called Örjan Persson, a Swedish international player for Dundee United,
right,
who I'm not quite old enough to remember him very well, but certainly fans slightly older than me say that he was a player who regularly scored spectacular goals.
Overhead kick? Was it overhead
he scored, apparently he scored an overhead kick against Hearts that was one of the best goals I've ever seen at Ibrox, but it's not on film, so I've never actually seen it.
Here we go, something to be better than Big Chirmitty, is it?
Tell me about it. And we brought in Andy Penman,
right,
from Dundee. We actually bought him at the end of the previous season, but we signed him too late to play at the end of the previous season. We basically swapped him for George McLean. And he played it inside right, number 8 as it was then. So three new forwards arrived, and season 1967-68 is the most frustrating one of the 3 for me, because that was the year we should have won the league.
You're basing that on how close we came, yeah?
Well, if you look at the number of points we got, the number of wins we had, and what we did against Celtic. So we beat Celtic in the first. They only played them twice in the days. It was just two games against each team. There was 18 teams in the league, so you played the 17 teams twice. It was 34 games. We beat Celtic in the first Old Firm game at Ibrox, which gave us a 2-point start on them. And we were still in the lead at New Year when we played them at Parkhead, and we drew 2 each, which maintained the lead. And getting into the last 6 or 7 games, we still had that 2-point lead over them. And if you look at what we did in the first 20 odd games, all we had to do was negotiate the last 7 games, none of which were against Celtic, to be champions. That's what we had to do. And they ran into 2 or 3 things that blew them off course. So one of them was the weather. People these days are used to undersoil heating, and there's not a lot of games get postponed, but quite often back in the day, football seasons would grind to a halt sometimes during the winter if there was a lot of frost and snow. And unfortunately, Rangers get quite a few games postponed. And then, this is going to sound like 2008 in the Manchester season, then we then drew a couple of Scottish Cup games and had to replay them. So fixtures started to pile up. We were still in Europe. We had the great Leeds United team to play in Europe. And all of a sudden we had the last 2 months of the season, and there was this big pile of big games to play one after the other. And it got too much. And at the same time, Jock Stein played a little bit of psychology on us. There was an outstanding Glasgow Cup game between Rangers and Celtic, which had been outstanding for ages. It kept getting postponed. And Celtic were insisting the game had to get played. And it ended up that the Glasgow FA set a date for it. And it was a Monday night. And the previous week, Rangers had played Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And they said, we're not playing that Monday. We've got another game on the Wednesday night after it. It's too much. We'll play it at the end of the season when there isn't as much. Because at this stage, Celtic were out the cup. They only had league games plus that Glasgow Cup time. But the Glasgow FA decided, no, the game has to go ahead. Jock Stein starts getting interviewed in the papers about Rangers are running scared of us. They don't want to play us. Started trying to get in their heads. All the stuff Alex Ferguson used to do at Man United and Aberdeen in later years. Mm-hmm. And it ended up Rangers pulled out the Glasgow Cup. They decided they wouldn't play it. So, and that then started this whole bit about Rangers. Rangers are scared of playing Celtic. They didn't want to face them. Celtic are playing too well now because they had won quite a few games leading up to that. And I think it started getting in the Rangers players' heads that Celtic are catching us all day. And in the last run-in for the title, they had a draw at Dundee United, nothing each. And the great Jimmy Miller was man of the match for Dundee United as a defender that night, which meant we only had 1 point in advantage. Now, I don't know how much you guys know about the rules back in the late 60s, but if you were level in points, it was goal average. They decided it rather than goal difference. So goal average was goals scored, then you divided it by the goals against. In effect, it punished you conceding goals because the smaller amount of goals you conceded, you were dividing by a smaller number, and it made your goal average better. So we played St Johnstone in a midweek rearranged game at Ibrox, and we beat them 4-3 to maintain this 1 point advantage. But because they had scored 3 goals, Celtic then took over us in goal average, which meant they had even more pressure piled on themselves because they no longer had any safety blanket at all. Because up until then, even if they had drawn a game, they still had the better goal average. But now Celtic had the better goal average because St Johnstone scored 3 goals. And basically, it got in their heads. And they had another draw a couple of weeks later at Morton, a 3-each draw, when John Gregg almost won the game single-handedly, scored twice and basically almost played Morton himself for the second half, which brought Celtic level on points with a better goal average. And all of a sudden, with just a couple of games left, Celtic were top of the table for the first time all season. And then to put the tin lid on it, the second last game we played was at Rugby Park. We won, and everybody heard that Celtic had drawn it at Parkhead against Morton. It finished 1 each, which put Rangers back a point in front again with just one game to go. What they didn't know was that Celtic had scored in the 4th minute injury time and won 2-1. So that there was a pitch invasion. All these jubilant Rangers fans all celebrating because they were going to win the league after all. And then suddenly word came round that actually Celtic had, I think it was Bobby Lennox, had scored in the 94th minute, and Celtic were back on top of the league again. And that was the last. That was it. That just totally deflated them. They thought on the Saturday they were going out to win the league, whereas what it turned out is that on the Saturday, even if they won, if Celtic won their game, it wouldn't matter because their goal average was better.
Yeah, so we've dropped 3 points in the last 3 games, mate. Sorry.
Two. They dropped. They drew 5 games in total, but 2 of the draws came in the last 7 games.
Do you think Europe, the Leeds United tie, maybe with a bit of success getting to the quarterfinals, and that would be a big tie, a Battle of Britain, and obviously Leeds were a team, a force then. And
they were
the first game,
right.
We drew nothing each, and then we went down there and lost 2-0. I mean, they were building a great side, mostly Scots.
Yeah,
they
I think to be fair, I think they were just a little bit better than that Rangers team. And I think if you look at what they then achieved, they won the tournament that year. They won that European trophy, and the following season they won the English First Division, the top league as it was then, and they won it with a points total that had never been done before. So I think we just hit the wrong opposition. I think they hit the wrong opposition that time.
Yeah, just the run-in done us, and obviously we changed our manager partly through the season.
We did. Scott Simon got sacked when he was top of the league. I think he was probably sacked. Good old John Lawrence again, because that same day Rangers drew at home in the league to drop a point. Meanwhile, at Hampden, Celtic were winning the League Cup, which meant they had won their 4th successive domestic trophy. And I don't think John Lawrence could handle it any longer, and he sacked Scott Simon. Now, personally, do I think the change of manager derailed us in any way? I don't think it did. I think if you look at the results when Davy White took over, they were excellent. In fact, I don't know if you like your stats, but
I do.
So think of Bill Struth, Walter Smith, and Graham Souness, right? Think of the number of league titles those 3 managers won for Rangers. It's a hell of a number, right?
Yeah.
Davy White had a better win record in the league than any of the 3 of them.
I noticed that today, mate. How good his record was for games, but it's no how many you win. It's what games you win.
It's what games you win. Exactly. But but his win record in the league would have won the league so many times. It just so happened. I talked about bad timing. He was up against a team who won an even better percentage of them.
Aye. Right, so we move on to the final season, the 68-69 season, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, which is ups and downs, just like the 3 years you're talking about. With some fabulous players in it still, mate, yeah?
Yeah, well, this was the season that Davy White signed Colin Steen and he signed Alec MacDonald. So even if history remembers Davy White as somebody who failed, who didn't win a trophy, just for signing those 2 players, I would suggest that he'd done something significantly good for Rangers. 68-69 was a really weird season. Celtic weren't as good as they were. Celtic actually finished with a lower points total than they did in any of the 3 previous seasons. They won their 4th title in a row that year, and it was the lowest points total out of the 4 of them. But our consistency wasn't good enough. And the thing that really annoys is that we beat Celtic 4-2 at Parkhead, and we beat them 1-0 at Ibrox. So we won both the league games against them, which gives you 4 points to a start on them, and we still finished 5 points behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So Rangers shot themselves in the foot that season by losing daft game. They lost to St Mirren, they lost to Airdrie, they lost to St Johnstone. They had too many off days. You weren't going to finish above a Jock Stein team with too many off days. The crazy thing was they won both the league games against Celtic. They also played Celtic in a Glasgow Cup semi-final and won that 4-3. So they won 3 successive Old Firm games. And the following season started, and they won the first Old Firm game in that one as well. So that was 4 Old Firm games, but there was one in the middle of it, which was the Scottish Cup final, and that was the game we lost, and we lost humiliatingly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all this. Davy White won lots of games. He beat Celtic lots of times, but he lost the wrong games.
What's your take on, obviously Colin Stein was suspended for that game?
He was.
Yeah, he'd been sent off previous. What's your take that we fell for a trap?
Well, aye. So Colin Stein's disciplinary record was pretty poor. I think that's the first thing to say. He had been sent off playing for Hibs against Rangers the season before. We signed him and Alec Ferguson got sent off for fighting. He'd been sent off another time for Hibs in another game. So back in those days, suspensions used to accumulate. So the more times you appeared in front of the SFA, the longer your next sentence would be. It wasn't done in games back then. It was done in days or weeks. So you might start with a 7-day suspension. It might go to a 14-day suspension if you're up against them again. So after he joined Rangers, he gets sent off at Kilmarnock for fighting, and he got quite a. I think 28 days. I think he got about a month for that one. And Rangers came out of that a bit lucky because his 28-day suspension coincided with a bit of a winter freeze, and he actually only missed 1 game, and the 28 days were up. We only played 1 game in that month. So we got away with one there. We then played Clyde in a game at Ibrox when Stein and Alec Ferguson played together up front, which didn't happen that often.
And what was the score?
6-0. 6-0. Colin Stein scored another hat trick. Kashuri had scored a hat trick in his debut, a hat trick in his second game. He was on fire for the minute he joined us. And 6-0 up, 2 minutes to go, and one of the Clyde defenders had a kick at Stein when Stein was running with the ball. But the referee waved play on because Stein kept possession. So the guy kicked him again. Stein kept running. The guy kicked him again. If the referee had blown for a foul for any of those 3 initial kicks, Colin Stein would not have made the headlines the next morning. But unfortunately, the referee played on each time. The red mist came down and Stein turned around and walloped him. And the 2 of them get sent off. Now, because that was his 3rd or 4th sending off in the space of just over a year, he was always going to get a long suspension. And his suspension the previous time had been 28 days. So, if you like, the minimum it was going to be was 35. They would go up at least a week. But they gave him 42 days. They put it up by 2 weeks, which meant that it ran right beyond the end of the domestic season, which meant he missed the cup final. Now, if the referee had done his job in the Clyde game, then I'm quite sure Colin Stein would have played in the Scottish Cup final. But when I talk about bad decisions, the referee made a bad decision, but Colin Stein made a bad decision as well because he knew fine well the next time he gets sent off, he was going to get hammered. He knew that. And it just shows sometimes players, when the red mist comes down, they lose control of what they're going to do. And he gets sent off. What I will say about the Scottish Cup final is that if Stein had played, yes, it might have been different. without doubt. There's no doubt Alex Ferguson took the blame for a lot of what happened that day. He never played for Rangers again. But you could argue...
We seem to do that through our history, don't we?
Aye.
We're fall guys, and you lose a game, you lose as a teammate. Yeah, people make mistakes, don't pick up at corner kicks, but allegedly fairly done, and you maybe don't have the best game in the world, but we always seem to react more than,
So, but the thing that I think is mainly forgotten is that the week before the final, Jimmy Johnson went up before the SFA because he had been booked 3 times. And they gave him a suspension that went to the day after the cup final. So he missed the cup final as well. So we could talk about the SFA were biased and anti-Rangers and stuff, but in truth, they gave Steen the kind of suspension he must have expected. And they banned arguably Celtic's best player for the final as well. The Scottish Cup final in 1969 just was the end of the nearly men era for me. So Rangers could and should have won the league in 1969 if they'd been more consistent. Because on their day they were every bit as good as Celtic were. But the cup final was a disaster. The Scottish Cup final was an absolute disaster.
We're still going for a European trophy after the Scottish Cup final, yeah?
I know. The way the fixtures pile up had worked. The European semi-finals against Newcastle came after the Scottish Cup final. And when you think of the way the Scottish Cup final went, and you think of what the morale must have been like in the Rangers dressing room after that 4-0, and the pressure that was on the manager, Alex Ferguson get dropped and told he wasn't going to play again. Norrie Martin, the goalkeeper, get dropped because he made a couple of mistakes in the cup final. Jerry Neath, German goalkeeper, came in. And Willie Johnson was suspended. He'd been sent off in the quarter-final. So we missed... And Colin Steen wasn't match fit. He hadn't played since the quarter-final, which was weeks and weeks before it. The Newcastle game was a bad timing thing for me because Newcastle were nowhere near as good a team as Leeds United had been the season before. But they got us at exactly the right time to get us. We were in a bad way. We were missing a lot of players. The heads were down. And then to put the tin lid on it, we got a penalty in the first half an hour and missed it. And we ended up drawing nothing each. We went down to Newcastle and lost 2-0. I think that's another European trophy. Maybe not as bad as the one in 1967, but Newcastle won it. They won the trophy.
Yeah.
And that nothing will convince me that they were actually a better team than that Rangers team.
Right. A few questions for you, mate. Yeah.
Oh, questions. Okay.
Henderson or Johnson?
Are you talking about Jimmy Johnson?
No. Oh, well, obviously Willie all day long.
Sorry. Sorry. I thought you meant for Scotland.
No, for us.
Is
their paths are there? Both at the peak of their powers. One slightly older, one young buck, if you like. Yeah.
Yeah. So between 1966 and 1969, the answer to that question is Willie Johnson.
Right. Okay.
Because for a couple of reasons. One is that by 1966-67, Willie Henderson started to get bunions in his feet, and he started missing a lot. He started being injured quite a lot. He had a bad knee injury. He actually missed quite a chunk of a couple of the seasons that we're talking about here. Whereas Willie Johnson, he broke his leg. He broke his ankle at Berwick, by the way. He missed a big chunk of the first season we're talking about. But Willie Johnson scored a heck of a lot of goals. He scored 8 goals at Parkhead in one season, actually. I think in those 3 seasons, he was a bigger player for that Rangers team than Willie Henderson was. But I'll caveat it slightly by saying at Willie Henderson's peak in the earlier 60s,
yes,
I think he was a better winger than Willie Johnson.
Right, okay. That's fair. I think that's fair, mate, for what I've been told. And yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Aye. So, biggest error?
The biggest error?
In that 3 years, are you blaming the board? Are you blaming the management? Are you blaming the players?
So the biggest error for me, without doubt, is Roger Hine playing the European final, because that absolutely cost Rangers a European trophy.
Where would you like to play, Willoughby or Forrest?
If you looked at the results we got after Willoughby came into the team, I would have stuck with Willoughby, actually. his goal scoring rate that season was far better than Jim Forrest, and he was the man in form and the man in possession of the jersey. He scored 4 at Motherwell. He scored 3. He scored a hat trick as well. He scored a hat trick against Hearts. He was on fire. He played in the first leg of the semi-final when we won away from home in Bulgaria. I still can't get my head around how we didn't play in the second leg.
Yeah, okay then. Aye. And by the way, without doubt, Jim Forrest should be in the Rangers Hall of Fame. I think it's.
I will not argue with that.
We started the petition on here. I don't know if it was 4 or 5 years ago, mate.
Right.
And how he's now in the Rangers Hall of Fame is just beyond belief, considering that other people who have done what Jim done in such a short space of time. His record's phenomenal. Yeah.
Just as a slight aside, the League Cup book that I wrote, the 2 seasons Jim Forrest first came into the team, we won the League Cup in both of them. His goal scoring record in the League Cup in those 2 seasons had to be seen to be believed. I think he scored 20 goals in 10 games or something in one of the seasons. It was just absolutely ridiculous. He scored 2 goals against Celtic in his Old Firm debut, didn't he? He was 18 years old, and he just didn't stop scoring for 3 years.
Aye, it's you talk about the early man. If maybe dropped him after the Berwick game, got him a bit of form, he might have been carrying on. We'll never know, mate. You'll never know, and how been different.
As I said, it really surprised me when I dug out the letters pages to the newspapers and stuff after Berwick. The number of letters from Rangers fans who agreed that Forrest and McLean should get put in the transfer list. That really surprised me.
But some people wanted tab draft for Friday night.
Yeah, okay, you win.
We do overreact, but if you look at it, I'm as guilty as anybody. We had a show last night, and we actually slaughtered the team and said that we didn't play well, and we didn't play well, but we've got a tendency at a club, if anything happens, we overreact, we don't seem to, we make decisions that sometimes have come back to bite us, when you look back. All right, in hindsight, always in hindsight, mate, it's easy to be wise in hindsight, yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt during the period I'm talking about in the late 60s that the influence John Lawrence had on the club and on the team did not do us any favours.
What do you think would have happened? I know Baxter come back just later than that, and obviously 66, 67, etc. What do you think would have happened if Baxter would have stayed with Rangers?
It depends if it's the Jim Baxter that before his leg break or not, I suppose, isn't it? It was Baxter's leg break that the 2 things that completely changed the 1960s. Excuse me, was Baxter's leg break and Jock Stein getting appointed as a Celtic manager. I still can't make my mind up which one of the 2 is more important. Because Baxter owned Celtic. Celtic were absolutely terrified of him. But I don't know if he could have kept that going year on year after that.
Mm-hmm. Aye. Listen, mate, I don't know where that yours went, huh?
Sorry, I'm having a coughing fit here.
All right, don't mention coughing on here, mate. You'll be next in line. As long as I know a remote control getting bounced off your head, we're all right.
It's fine. Take a wee drink of water.
No. Listen, I enjoyed that, mate. I really did.
Good. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Good. I hope everybody else enjoyed it as well.
And by the way, get the book if that's your era. And if it's not your era, it's always good to learn about the history of the club. We'll come back to the books after. This next tune has been Davey's selection. We're going to go on a tune. Then I'm going to bring my muckers outside, and he wants to maybe ask you a couple of things, Davey, before we move on to Rangers talk. But this tune is chosen by Davey. Why? What's the rationale, Davey?
This was the first. This was the first Rangers record I ever had. My dad bought me this when I was a wee boy. I had it as a single, and I used to play it all the time before I was even at school. And it was also played on the tannoy at Ibrox when I first went to see Rangers. So the Rangers song is my song.
All right. I hope the boys have dug it the right one.
I hope so.
I hope so. Man, I've been looking for it forever. Get yourself a mute, because we're going to have a tune.
Follow, follow, we will follow Rangers. Everywhere, anywhere, we will follow on. Follow, follow, we will follow Rangers. If they go to Dublin, we will follow on. There's not a team like the Glasgow Rangers. No, not one. No, not one. There's not a team like the Glasgow Rangers. No, not one. No, not one. Some folk know all about their sorrows. We will fight till the day is done. There's not a team like the Glasgow Rangers. No, not one. No, not one. Follow, follow, we will follow Rangers. Up the stairs, down the stairs, we will follow on. Follow, follow, we will follow Rangers. If they go to Dublin, we will follow on. Follow, follow, we will follow Rangers. Everywhere, anywhere, we will follow on. Follow, follow, we will follow Rangers. If they go to Dublin, we will follow on.
Why don't you give us a call on 0141 356 1972. It's your show, it's your platform. Let's hear from you.
A classic, a classic. One of the old school boys' favourites, mate. So you've made somebody's night, David.
Oh, that's definitely an age thing, without doubt. I think the guy that sang that was remember the old comedian Jimmy Logan. I'm sure that was his brother.
Right, okay. Okay, there you go. Every day's a school day. Somebody who might know that, who's maybe old enough to remember that, I'm going to bring in my mucker Southside. Evening, Southside. How you doing, mate?
Hi, good. And you're ripping it. I'll tell you that. No, Davey, fantastic. Listen, the last hour, mate, absolutely. The research you've put into it and everything, it's fantastic. The knowledge and that.
Appreciate that.
A bit before my time, slightly, but I was young enough. I was about at 2 or something about then. But to listen to you and everything that you've done for the book, you know, it's fantastic, Davey. And as Oxford said to you as well, I'm still annoyed that I pulled a couple of directors at the AGMs. I remember getting a hold of Bisgrove and all, and I said to him, and about 2 years ago at the AGM, I got a hold of one of the directors, and I said to him, why is Jim Forrest not in the Rangers Hall of Fame? I said, it's a simple thing to do, and get him in there. If you look at the goals he scored and the amount of games, record goals to games record, it's phenomenal. Even at his age when he first came in for Yoker. And it's frightening and it disappoints me that they've never done it, Dave. I don't know what you think, but it really disappoints me that there's something there holding it back. I don't know what, because we've got a new board in and all that, so it shouldn't make a difference. But surprising that they've never put
there's
in.
quite a number of players with a better shout to be in the Hall of Fame than some of the players that are in it. I think that's undeniable. There's one. My old dad's, one of his first heroes was called Jimmy Duncanson, and he played for Rangers in the 40s and the early 50s. He won everything that you could win. He scored way over 100 goals. He scored 20 goals against Celtic. He's not in the Hall of Fame. I think you could go through 7 or 8 players with a a really good case for it. And then you look in the Hall of Fame, and I don't take this the wrong way for any fans of these particular players, but Ray Wilkins is in it.
But the ways long enough to be in the Hall of
Ray
Fame.
Wilkins was a fantastic player, but I don't know how many. What did he play? Just under 2 years.
I'll give you exactly, mate, if you give me a second. But you're right, mate. You know, even if you talk about Gaza, 2.5 seasons he actually maybe played for us, give or take. Yeah. He was fantastic. We loved him. Yeah. You know, but he didn't have the longevity to be, for me, to be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you talk about the 9 in a row team, Davy Robertson's not in it. Gary Stevens isn't in it. They were terrific players for Rangers. And they were terrific players for Rangers for a length of time. I think I don't know who decides who gets in it, but I think if there's to be another induction into it, I'd love it if supporters groups were able to have some kind of input into it instead of just some invisible committee.
94 games Ray Wilkins played, 69 league games over. So
okay.
You know, maybe if you have criteria, you've got to play 100 league games or something minimum, you know. And you've also you should be finished playing. The mistake we made a couple of years ago when we put Taverner in it when they were still playing, It should be done when you're finished, in my opinion.
I agree with you, but do you remember Barry Ferguson getting inducted into it after he left for Blackburn? And then he came back. So he was actually the first one that was a Rangers player that was in the Hall of Fame while he was a Rangers player.
Yeah, but he should have been retired before we done it. Yeah.
I totally agree.
You know, but we've both got a beer in my bonnet about that south side, and you took the time to meet some of Jim Forrest's family, mate. Remember when we were doing the bus run here, and thanks to everybody who supported at this time, the thousands of people that signed the petition. Yeah.
Yeah, I met a couple of relatives and stuff that I know, and they were disappointed. And at that time, he wasn't keeping in the great health, best of health at that time as well. They were hoping that something might have been done for him, that he would have seen it. But unfortunately, we just couldn't get it out of the line, Davy. We tried a few things in that, and it just never happened. And something holding it back. And like you say, Davy Robertson, not even getting in the Hall of Fame and that. Gary Stevens and players like that. And like you say, there's other players who did play well at the club for a very, very short space of time, but managed to get themselves in the Hall of Fame. So maybe something like you said, maybe it'd be good for like supporters groups or something like that. To maybe get involved and maybe try and put players forward, because I honestly don't know who picks it either, David, to be honest.
Well, I know it originally. The very first time it was David Mason, the club historian. It was David Murray, who was the club chairman at the time. It was John Gregg and Sandy Jardine. That was the four. But I don't know who it became in years after that. I've no idea. If I'm allowed to throw a name in, I don't know how long you might talk about the Hall of Fame, but
when you go, Dave.
There's a player who's not in the Hall of Fame who I think is the worst omission of them all. A guy called David Mitchell. And the reason I think it's ridiculous he's not in the Hall of Fame, he was the first Rangers captain to win the league. He was the first Rangers captain to beat Celtic. He was the first Rangers captain to win the Scottish Cup. He played for Rangers for 12 years. And towards the end of his career, he played in the Rangers team that went through a whole league season that didn't drop a point. And yet he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Fair shout, mate. Can't argue. When you said David Mitchell there,
you thought the big Australian, didn't you? I do it every time. I intentionally do it every time I don't explain it. I just give the name because everybody always thinks that. I get them every time.
He was quite good against Inter Milan, but not that good.
Aye. Remember him scoring the fog at Tannadice?
Oh, aye, the League Cup semi-final, aye.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, small man, when they were in the stand, they thought it was, they thought they'd lost. I was in the terrace and seen the goal get in. Anyway, it is what it is. Where are we as a team this season, David? Where do you see us?
Oh, God, where do I see us? Nowhere near ready yet. I think unfortunately is the answer to that. Oh God, well, we certainly seem to have got ourselves a number of players who hopefully be ball winners and hopefully will be competing better than the team last season did. But we still don't have a defensive organiser. We still are really short a cover at fullback. We still don't have any depth and creativity and pace and wide attacking areas. And it must be soul destroying to have been a Rangers forward the other night, because I think Shankland only saw the ball once going across the 6-yard line all night, which is his strength. Hit the byline, cut the ball across, he'll score. We're miles away. We need positive, attacking, creative, wide players. We need another midfield creator, a general. We need a defensive organiser, and we need at least a left back, if not a left and right back.
Southside?
I agree with Davey. We're short in a few areas. I know we've just signed another winger, a Japanese boy, so we're trying to identify him. We've had allegedly we've had a £8 million bid denied for another winger. But I just think it's mad. Everybody goes in meltdown after Friday night because we didn't get the 3 points, didn't give the service to the strikers. There was one or two chances that if he'd probably slipped Shankland in near the end, if Chimiki had sent him past the ball or done it to Curtis, we might have scored. But we're short in a couple of areas. But listen, he's not had a lot of time to work with the squad. We've been coming in and out at different times. Fitness levels are all at different stages. And we dropped 2 points and it's just a meltdown. So that's why I get rid of McInnes, or he's not good enough. And you question this and question that. I'm not questioning nothing. It was bad enough to come back down the road for Tannadice and we dropped 2 points before getting into the mass hysteria. And I did hear you the other night on the show. And I get it. Listen, we critique the game as you do, Ox, and you and Albert done it. But it was a bit depressing, wasn't it? But the factual and all. It was factual and a lot of stuff you say as well. But listen, we've got to be upbeat. Okay, we dropped 2 points. So what? Let's get on about this. Let's calm down and let's get set about the task. We've got a lot of football to get played. We've got a lot more players to try and get in the team. Still trying to embed it in. I think we've got overloaded in the midfield. I get that. You'll need to start picking it out right and getting the right players with a wee bit more creativity. Asgard might be a better player for us this year because he seems to have gave him a wee bit of lease of life than we've no seen. And I hate picking on Finlay Curtis. I watched Finlay Curtis all through the B team, who's a young boy coming up through the teams when I went to the B games. And Finlay Curtis isn't a person that we should be relying on every week. He should be a boy that once the team starts ticking away, he can come in and get some game time and build his games up, and he will contribute and he will score goals. So there's a few positions and there's a few things we need to sort, but I just can't go this doom and gloom straight away. We dropped a couple of points, so everything that's knackered. We can't win a league, this nonsense, David. It does me nothing, mate.
I get that, and I think that most of us probably on here are old enough to have seen Rangers dropping points in the first game of the season and still going on to have a good season. That one result doesn't actually bend me out of shape one way or the other. What does worry me a little bit is how long it takes for us to identify where the problems are and then do something about it. I think that we're part of a kind of food chain when it comes to transfers. What we're hoping for is one of the teams in a bigger league will come and spend some money, give us some money, then we can go and buy players of our own. But it's all kind of imbalanced because these teams in bigger leagues don't start their league till towards the end of August. Usually they don't have European qualifiers. So they're never in as much. Some of them are only back training that long. Or they're still in pre-season tours and stuff like that. I think the sale of Raskin was always going to be the key to Rangers spending some decent money on some quality additions to the squad. I don't know when we're going to get that money in for Raskin. It's whether we can actually afford to do it the other way around, if you know what I mean. Spend it in advance knowing we're going to get something in to replace it, because August is a big month. The European qualifiers
What
the
a game.
European qualifiers come up upon you. You've got a League Cup game that if you beat, you're out. We've got Pataudry to go to before the month's out. I just feel that, and I get why it can take so long, but everybody's known for a while when the season starts, and unless we've just not got the money to do it, for me, we should have been moving faster to fill the obvious gaps that we had. Last season showed you where a lot of the gaps were, and we've still done out wide. I mean, last season the wingers were hopeless. What have we done this? We've still not brought one in yet. Well, we have now today, but it was today.
Mm-hmm. Aye. Listen, I get that. I get that. And by the way, I think some of the business we've done well at the club is the last week. Barjani and Ant-Man get at the club, and obviously Barjani looks as if that deal is he's loan for them to buy. It's not an option, so it looks as if he's gone without seeing the details of the contract. But also Ant-Man's gone. And obviously, you'd like to think that frees up some money plus wages to bring other people into the club, because
Yep.
You're right, the forward, right and left, we've got enough centre forwards, right and left, it's gaping, fullbacks, and I think obviously centre halves were shorty as well, mate. Midfield, well, I think we'd have to maybe move some on before we bring others, because we've got a plethora in their south side there.
Aye, it's about Derek McInnes finding the right mix. I mean, Thursday night, I think we'll play with the two Hodden. I think Dan Neil and Devlin will play together. But we don't need to do that for league games. And it's just about getting the mix. Obviously, Dragovic just came in, young boy. He's going to have something to say about it, and he'll be getting a starting position, I would think, in the team. At some point, he's going to get game time. But we're overloaded now in midfield, but we need to be creating for the strikers. We know what sort of strikers we've got. I think Nadiri probably the other night wasn't the best of choices, but it might have been if we had been putting balls across the box and had the strikers involved. But we never done that. But Derek McInnes knows this. He's no daft. He's played at the club. He knows what it takes. They have worked hard. We did say we needed, I say down here we'd probably sign about 10, 12 players. That's what we had to sign. And we're quite far down the road with that. Whether they're all the right ones or no, time will tell. They'll all be judged in how they play. Godfrey's out for a month, which is a bit of a blow, because you want your centre-backs to come in and try and form a partnership together. I know Fox likes him. I personally don't like Fernandez. I think he's just too casual. I just don't know if he's going to make it. Somebody might come in and buy him. We might get decent money. We might be able to sit and get rid of him. I just think he's a wee bit a weak link in our defence. That's just my own opinion.
The last 6 league games, he's been appalling, mate.
It's just my opinion. I just know I'm not 100% sure of him.
If you just take that snap of the last 6 league games, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He played well, the big boy.
No, but listen, he's a young boy. Time you want him to bed in and give him a bit of time. It's a big jersey to fill, and at the moment he's the weakest link at the back. Sterling, like you say, is going to. If you look at his record, but he's been since he came to the club, he's missed nearly a full season through injuries. Since he's. I think one of the boys done it the other week, and I think he said roughly nearly a full season. He missed the games for the time he's been here, so he can't be relied on. And Tour Romans obviously needs help on the left-hand side.
He didn't play well. He didn't play well on Friday night either. I've been a fan of his since he came into the club. I don't think he played well. Anyway, come and join us. We've got a question for you, David. Somebody's contacted us. I don't know if you've seen it. Where's the best place to get your book? Yeah.
I like that question. That means somebody might want to buy it. So the book is released next Monday, which is the 10th of August. So from the 10th of August, if you want to actually see the book before you buy it, you want to go to a shop to buy it, you'll get it in most of the big Waterstones stores in Scotland. I don't know if there'll be anywhere outside of Scotland. There'll certainly be the ones in Scotland, though. If you're happy enough to buy it online, the simplest thing to do is get it on Amazon. You can get it for various other book websites, but I tend to find Amazon's the cheapest one, and usually they do free postage as well. It's available to pre-order on Amazon right now. And actually, I know some folk that ordered it that have now got it. So they're not waiting until next Monday to send it out. So if you really wanted the book now, the best thing to do is just go on Amazon and get it. And I think it's 10% off just now as well.
There you go, Old School Blue. Hope that answers your question. Yeah, there you go. Right, so we need centre-halves in. We need centre-halves in. We need cover for Romans left back. If something happened to him, we've not got a left back and a left back at the club, which is remarkable. We've nothing wide apart from Gassama. Davey, I don't know what you think. I don't know if he's going to cut the mustard consistently. Yeah.
Gassama. I think there's a player in there, but consistency and attitude both worry me quite a lot. There was talk in January of was it Monaco? We're watching them. I think it's telling that we didn't get any bids for him in the summer at all. If he stays, then I don't want him to be a first choice on either the right or the left, and he will need to be somebody who takes his chance when he gets it. But right now, I wouldn't want to rely on him at all as being the player that's going to make a difference for us in the forward third of the park.
Southside.
I agree with attitude. We've seen that at Easter Road last season. Even Tav was shouting on. Tav was a sub that day, and he was shouting on him. He cut it out, and he gave it one of these stairs to the support behind the goal and that, and sort of shrugged his shoulders. And it doesn't go well, Davies. You know, plenty of players have given support. The stare or a sign or mouthed off, and it's not went done well. You know, so attitude 100%. Listen, he's still a young player. Winger's blow hot and cold. The only winger I've ever seen that was so consistent for 3 years, because he chucked it the last season, was Brian Laudrup. So wingers, they blow a wee bit hot and cold, and he probably has got still time to grow. But I think he's a player that if we get enough interest in, I wouldn't mind cashing in on him. I think it's probably the right thing to do. We were talking about it last week. I don't know if you heard the show, David, but we were talking about I would take Cherny. I would go and get him. If we were offering 6-7 million for a winger now, then I would think that if we could get him in the door, I think he's ready to go. He knows the club. He's at the right age. You look at the goals and assists that he had when he was here the first time round. And he had an attitude problem, as we know. Ibrox didn't get dealt very quickly, but I think you need somebody like that. You need that wee bit more experience. It's not always about taking the winger at 22, 23, and if he plays well, we'll get a return for money. There's 1 or 2 players in the squad and in the team that I think you should be able to put in, and you'll not get a return, but you want them to have success, David, straight away. And I think Cherny is one. I know he's on quite a bit of wages, but if there's a way of bridging the gap, then I would like to have brought him in. Somebody that knows and he's ready to go, and you know he's going to produce. He'll have more good games than he'll have bad games, David.
Here's another question for you, David. It's Kingsley Fox now, yeah?
Okay.
It's if you were bringing somebody into this present Rangers team for the 60-69 era, and you wanted to improve our team, you can only pick one now. Who would it be?
Oh, God. There's a question. Well, we've just talked about how we've got no wingers. I'd be really tempted to take one of the wingers for then. The absolute inspiration of that team in the late 60s was John Gregg, though. And I'd be sorely tempted to, even though we could argue we've got defensive midfield players, we've got fullbacks and stuff. It's awfully difficult not to pick John Gregg, because I think he dragged teams from draws to wins so often in that era. See when you look at the number of games Rangers won by a single goal in those 3 seasons, and the number of them that John Gregg either scored the goal or created the goal, even though he didn't play up front. An absolute leader of men, and he made everybody round about him better. And I think when you've got a team with a lot of young players in it, a captain like that for them all to look up to would be, if we put it this way, it could only do them good. So For influence on the rest of the team, John Gregg. If it was just because we've no wingers at the moment, probably Wally Johnson.
All right, that's a fair answer, isn't it? John Gregg playing in the Cammy Devlin position, if you like. Yeah, Nico Raskin. Yeah.
Actually, he could play as the right-sided centre-back beside Big Fernandez and keep him right.
Yeah, that would be interesting, mate. I would like to see that. Anyway, we've been joined by old Davy, this is right doing his 42nd. Evening, David.
Good evening, Ox. Suicide, and I must compliment you, David, on your explanation of the Rangers 60s, because you took me right back to the being on the terracings. I'm a young 77, and I was all the things you were speaking about. I just shut my eyes and I was there, you know. So I'm sorry if
I made it traumatic for you. I didn't mean it.
No. When you get in my age, you don't get that kind of feeling anymore.
Yeah, a pill for that, Davey.
Aye, I tell you, aye. No, but it's been a marvellous show there. What you were talking about was exceptional. The way you described everything, it was, I mean, you were talking about Forrest and the Hall of Fame. It was marvellous. It was a great presentation, and it's great to have you on that show.
Thanks very much.
Really sorry, I've not really got a question for you, because the guys have sort of asked you all the ones about where do you think we're heading, and I've said that I was on last night, and I was very what Suicide was saying, that everybody's obviously jumping on the bandwagon because of the way the result went. But I said, well, it's too early days for that, so we've just got to bite the bullet. But what I will agree with you is it can't go on for too long. So it doesn't have much time, but we can only wait and see how it goes. Take every game as it's coming and then make a wee judgment. But one game, I'll drop 2 points any time in one game. I know a lot of people will give me in the neck for that. I'll drop 2 points in one game as long as it's not the 30th game of the season. So there's another 33 games to go or something, or maybe more.
37. 37.
Well, there you go. And I agree with what you said about John Gregg. Some man.
Brilliant. Did you agree that he would be the best player to put in the team just now then?
Well, I am no, because he wouldn't last 10 minutes.
That's true. I never thought of that.
That's the thing. What you were talking about, David. The rules and the way they've changed. I'm totally against all this. Now we've got the referee holding his horn up, counting 5 to take a shy. I mean, they're killing the game in that sense. To me, anyway, that's just my opinion. But Greg and the teams, I seen Jimmy Baxter play. In fact, I seen Jimmy Miller playing. You'll remember this. It was a Scottish Cup final replay at Hampden, and there was 101,000 or something there. And Jimmy Miller played. Sorry?
1966.
Yeah. I was 17. And Jim, what was I going to say? Sorry. What was I going to say?
Jimmy Miller.
Aye, thanks. Jimmy Miller was playing left off that night, and he had a stormer. But we can't generate players like that again. And as everybody says, we can't live in the past. But you can only hope that some of these players we're getting in can get the feeling what they guys had. But it's a big ask. I don't think we'll ever replicate that again.
But there's a whole show on its own, Davey, one night. How is Scottish football? How we know producing players? You know, there's hardly in any of the teams now. You'll be called Old Davey for the night. Old Davey, right? And the other Davey, right? Davey, for no producing players. There's no John Gregg, Jimmy Miller, Wally Anderson, Wally Johnson, yeah?
But do you not think that if Rangers had another Willie Henderson or another Willie Johnson, they wouldn't last any more than 18 months, and some English team would take them away for 30 million quid?
That's the problem you've got. You've got that in the academy as well, eh?
Yep.
Yeah. If somebody's promising or doing well, they're up for getting snapped up because there's not even a transfer involved south side, eh?
I've seen it. Some of the English teams are looking at the young boys that we've got, and sometimes before they turn 16, you're going to give them a professional contract. They're offering them all sorts. The boy Rory Wilson, was it, I think, that was here when Gerrard was here, and he's went to Aston Villa. And they went and played them in their under-20s team. Billy Gilmer was another one who got prized away. If they are, and we've got a lot of talent there. They're now supposedly in the B team if we Kyle Glasgow and that, we've managed to farm him out. There's a couple other boys that we've managed to sign tied down on contracts there that English clubs have been looking at. And that's what they're doing. They're offering them big money, speaking to their parents and offering them this and that. And some of them just get a wee bit starstruck and want to leave. But we need to find a way to get them into the first team. And listen, we watched it with Ross McCausland. I used to watch Ross McCausland. Ross McCausland was a central midfielder. He reminded me of my wee pal, Ian Durant. Just go on the ball for the middle of the park. Me and Oberg used to go and watch the B team, and he was running direct lines straight at defence. He's playing 1-2s. He breaks into the Rangers team. He gets put out wide right, which was never his position. Newfoundland, and he does all right for a wee bit of time because we're struggling out there, and then he gets turned on because people aren't prepared to give him a chance. Finlay Curtis is the next one. I've already heard some of my pals even saying that his levels are Kilmarnock player now. You know, it's no. Finlay Curtis has got millions of ability, and he just needs a bit of help. He needs the help. We need to. It's down to us as a club to make the players better, and they've got to play in a team that's hopefully going to be winning and playing with a bit of confidence that's going to help them. Instead of before, like Kilmarnock the year before, when we don't win and they're getting booed off the park and all that, and Finlay Curtis is standing there because he was on the park and he's watching it happen and he's getting booed. That's no the Rangers way. Just people are going meltdowns because we drop a couple of points. Now, I heard you, David, David, heard you last night, but try to put a bit of positivity into they two that we're doing the show. But I understand, listen, we do it, we critique it. You don't want to sugarcoat it, you critique it. But just you need to calm down a bit, you know, it needs to calm down. But as I said, it's down to us to make these young players that we've got and signed. Paul Meesel's another one. We've got him out to St Mirren, I believe. So it's down to him. Hopefully he'll kick on, he'll get a chance at St Mirren, and then he'll maybe come back and he'll get a chance at Glasgow Rangers, because he's another young boy that I think shows great ability, confidence on the ball, can take the ball and hold it.
Physical as well.
And he's got a wee bit of physicality about him as well. But it's down to us to try and find a pathway for them all. Instead of buying their way all the time and spending all this money on players. I mean, we've just bought a boy at 20-year-old, Dragojevic. You know, we've bought him, he's 20. So how can we not play our own boys that are 20?
Historically, mate, I'll bring in Davey here. We've always been a buying club rather than producing boys. Yeah, it wasn't something we've done.
Yeah. You can go through history, and there's always bought players on successful Rangers teams. Although, to be fair, up until relatively recent history, there was usually one or two that at least one or two that had come through the ranks, isn't there? Even if I go into my favourite year in the 77, 78 treble winning team, so Colin Jackson came through the ranks, John Gregg came through the ranks, Andy Jardine came through the ranks, didn't they? So there's Derek Johnson came through the ranks. So there was still players who were given the pathway that's just been talked about. But in saying that, football's changed since then, and I don't know if we'll ever change it back. I don't think. I'll say one thing. I don't think it's a new thing that Rangers fans boo teams off the park when they're not happy, because I've seen that ever since I've started going to Rangers. But I do think we are more impatient than we've ever been. But I think we're going to remain impatient for as long as Celtic win everything and we win nothing.
Yeah. All right, we're moving on to the last part of the show. Let's hear from these.
Why don't you give us a call on 0141 356 1972. It's your show, it's your platform. Let's hear from you.
Yes. Look, aye. Look, Southside, I'm all for getting the boys in the team, and I want Finlay Curtis to succeed. But when I see Finlay, when I see him playing for us, I don't think, before he went on loan, and what I've seen in the cameos, and it is cameos this season. What's your sound, Davy? Old Davy, we're getting a bit of interference for you, mate. He's no ticked the boxes yet, but in cameos, when you come on with 10 minutes to go, mate, you might not even touch the ball sometimes, there's a bit of luck involved,
Nah, he's a young boy. Listen, he's got talent. If he's in the right areas, he'll score. He might come on. Look, everybody was greeting about. I was one for keeping him and trying to progress him. I would rather give Finlay Curtis the time on the park than give it to somebody like Gismara. I would rather do that because the boy is a Rangers supporter first and foremost. He knows what the club's about. He wants to do well. These boys don't come on the park and think, no, I can't be bothered today. I don't bother trying. Maybe sometimes they try too hard. But I'm for giving our own people a chance. Guys that love our club and we're trying to bring them through. Finlay Curtis will be a success at Rangers Football Club as long as we try and give him the game time that he needs. And once he's playing in a team that's got good confidence about them, then I agree. The first game and a couple of the games in the pre-season, he wasn't great. But that doesn't mean to say he's not good enough. That's the thing that people just jump on. So I believe he will be good enough, and it's just about us nurturing him as a player. And if he gets chances,
you see different from me. I'll tell you, things happen in the final third for Finlay, but I've not seen enough for him to show me that he should be in the Rangers first team.
Maybe shouldn't start every week, Ox. I've never said this. We shouldn't be relying on a boy at 18 to be outstanding week in, week out. He will have dips in form and he's a winger, but don't just dismiss him because he's had a bad couple of games or he's maybe hanging. He will have dips in form, but I expect Finlay Curtis to become and be a good first-team Rangers player as time goes on, and I think Derek McInnes will help him, and I think he will become a really good player. But at the moment, he's had a wee bit of dip in form, mate.
I think we're being joined by Smurf, Evening Smurf. Just before I bring Smurf in, Butterbean, please, when you send in a question, don't embarrass yourself. Do your homework. Butterbean, reword your question. Carry on. Old school boy, have a look at it. Evening, Smurf.
Hi. Evening, Ox. Evening, everybody. Thoroughly enjoyed the show tonight. But it's just interesting. I was listening to Davey, and your question was an excellent one to Davey, where what one player would you bring in? And Davey, it's a two-part answer. John Gregg, sort of unifying, sort of influencing a real leader. Couldn't agree more. We've needed it for years. And he said that he would play him at centre half. And of course, I think the defence right now, putting it politely and mildly, it needs surgery. And we need creativity and we need pace in the team. And of course, Bud Johnson, both. Right now, I think we lack leadership. I think our defence is atrocious. We lack creativity and we lack speed. And without risking Erkin Southside, we can't go forward like this. We need surgery in that team at the moment. I get it's a transition thing.
We need bodies in. But it's funny that with Davey, the players that you mentioned, one was somebody to unify the centre half and make us more solid, and the other one brought more pace into the team. Exactly what everybody's saying we're missing, with goals and creativity, which Bud Johnson would have done at his peak, his powers. In fact, knowing Bud, I might still give him a game of snoo, Davey.
Aye, well, he would probably insist on Colin Steen up front, of course. The two of them never go anywhere with their cell anymore.
Aye, I had the pleasure of having a weekend with myself and Fox a few years ago, and what a weekend that was. What a gentleman we Bud is. Great stories, but that pace would be an asset in any team.
So the Cherny get brought up earlier on. I think Czerny is an absolute no-brainer if we can afford it, because he ticks every box that you want ticked. So he knows the league, he knows the club, he's succeeded, he'll score goals, he'll create goals. He done it in Europe, he done it in domestic games. He's not that old. The only problem is we don't know whether we can afford the transfer fee and the wages. But if we can, I agree with whoever said it earlier on. It sounds like it would be a bit of a no-brainer for me. The fact we've just bought this Japanese right winger suggests to me though that Czerny isn't coming. Because I don't think they'll spend 7, 8, 9 million quid on another right winger after just spending 4 million on one just now. I'll throw a name in. I think we should seriously consider. I'll probably pronounce his name wrong. Mazwanisi, I think he pronounced it, or Motherwell. He can play in the right wing, he can play in the left wing, he can actually also play through the middle. He was the second top scorer in the league last year in that Motherwell team. He's quick, he's good in the ball, he's got an eye for goal. He's young, and he won't be in big wages at Motherwell, therefore he won't break the bank in terms of wages at Ibrox. I think if we're looking for a lower risk signing somewhere closer to home, and he can play on both sides, I think he'd be a good signing for Rangers.
I'm going to alter my mate Butterbean's question a wee bit, just quickly for you, Davey, again. 75, 76, treble winning team, or 77, 78, treble winning team? There was a slight difference team.
As in which one was the better team?
Yeah.
Oh, 77, 78 was a better team. They were more positive, they were more creative, they scored more goals. But in saying that, the spine of both teams was exactly the same.
Pretty much.
There wasn't a lot of difference in them. But
one was Kennedy, one was McCloy most of the season. Yeah.
Aye, but in effect, you're talking Gordon Smith for Martin Henderson. You're talking David Cooper for the late Bobby McKean, and you're talking Bobby Russell for Johnny Hamilton. That's 3 upgrades. That's 3 better players. So the 77, 78 team was a better team than 75, 76.
Aye. How good did you rate Smith?
His first season, he was outstanding. Actually, that season, Rangers actually played just one up front with Gordon Smith as a number 10. Folk all think it was a partnership, the two of them up front. Smith played as an attacking midfield player. And it was perfect. Big Derek Johnson was perfect for him. The two of them dovetailed brilliantly. And I think it was no coincidence that Smith started struggling in his next season and his final season, because John Gregg kept playing Derek Johnson at centre half and centre forward, and the two of them didn't really build up any partnership anymore. Gordon Smith was a good player. And he certainly provided me with a few memories. For example, the winning goal against Juventus, which is one of the great nights at Ibrox.
Aye, into the building, the stand.
That's right, the building site.
Yep. Aye. Another question I've been sent is for that team in the 78 treble winning team that year. Obviously, on quarter-final of the European Cup. In circumstances, Derek Johnson gets injured. Derek Johnson's fully fit with that tie. Do you think we got a chance of beating Cologne?
Have a chance, of course we do.
A better chance.
Cologne weren't as good as Juventus or PSV Eindhoven. So if we had played the way we had played in those other 2 games, then we'd have had every chance to beat Cologne. By that time in the season, we had as many poor games as good ones. We were really inconsistent that year. Unfortunately, we picked the home game against Cologne to have one of our really poor games, didn't we? I'll be honest with you. Even if we had beaten Cologne, I don't think we'd have beaten Nottingham Forest. I think they were probably a better team than even we were when we played well. I think they would have been a step too far, but when I look back, I think we should have beaten Cologne.
Right. Okay. There you go, Smith. There you go. Over yesterday's.
Aye, if only.
Yeah, if only.
Hopefully we had that today. You're naming Cooper Smith and Bobby Russell. Unbelievable. And aye, we've got a job of work ahead of us.
I think the manager knows that, and the recruitment staff. And one of the things I said last night is frustrated, and I think Southside and Davey have made the points, is that we know we're weak and we seem to be waiting a long time. And whether there's dominoes going to fall into place, I don't know, because we're not a party every bit of information. And we have spent a few quid. It's not just the transfers. Like when you bring the boy Neil in a free transfer, his wages are going to be inflated because they're free. It's the same as buying him as a purchasing. So he's getting the money instead of there being a transfer fee. So you're still paying big bucks. So we've spent a few quid for where we are. And then there's people, we've got to get people at the club before we bring others in quality. And some of them haven't turned up. And I don't mean that in a nasty way. They've just no either made it or they've been unlucky with injury. Or sometimes their form's not been good. But we need to do it quick so we can get moving, because August, September, there's a lot of games to be played quite quickly. All Davey, and you come, mate.
Well, I've been saying that. We're making that comment a few times lately, but and people are saying, I can't be bothered listening to this time to gel, but it does, whether you like it or no, it will take time. Well, not long, we've not got the time to waste on it, but it will come. If it doesn't come, you'll see it's not coming, if that makes sense. But can I just ask Davey something?
Aye.
Davey, when you earlier on, did you make a comment about Andy Penman?
Yeah, and Andy Penman was one of the players that we brought in for season 67-68 after the after the European final defeat. He was my first hero, actually, Andy Penman.
Well,
he was the first player I scored goal for Rangers. Yeah,
because I'll tell you, that man could hit a ball. And we've not got that in us, David. We've not got players like that that could take a ball through that distance and belt it. Andy Penman and quite a few Rangers, even the big Georgie boy, he could do it. And we're lacking in players like that. Do you think we would ever get the opportunity to get a player like that back again?
Well, if you think Andy Penman was a league winner with Dundee, wasn't he? And he was with Dundee for quite a few years before he came to Rangers. We talked earlier on, if a player comes through at a club like Dundee and really stands out, you need to go and get them quickly these days, because if you don't, they'll end up going down to England and you can't afford them anymore. So if there's another Andy Penman going to appear in the Dundee team over the next season, we can't sit about and wait for him. For how long Rangers waited to buy Andy Penman, because he'll be long gone by the time we decided we wanted him. If there's players in our league that we think could do a job for us, then I think you need to act relatively quickly these days, because the good players will go down south. They won't stick around at your Dundees and your Hibs and your teams like that the way they used to in the old days and stay there for years and years. That won't happen. Or Italy, correct? Or Italy.
They might go to Italy. They might go to Italy, but you've got to be quick. Things have changed with contracts, and the players were tied to the clubs then. So you could buy them at any time. Now with this window, you've either got to move quick or you've got to move decisive. And either that, you're just waiting, and you're getting played by agents or saying, they might be saying, he's interested in that deal, the 8 million, the wages are no bad, and then they'll be telling somebody else 10 minutes later on a phone call, well, Rangers have offered them this, you'll need to beat that. Yeah, and that's what agents will do, because they have no loyalty to any club Southside, have they?
No, but listen, all Bears banged on about it on the show, and I've agreed with him a few times. When we go in to buy Scottish players, they inflate it. You seen the hassle we had when we tried to buy Suter before we eventually got him. Jamie Walker was another player at Hearts, demanded £1 million from him before he disappears to Wigan for 400 grand. With the same, we've had it early years when we go and try and buy a player for another Scottish team, they just inflate the price. And it becomes, you think, well, is it worth paying that or is it no? And the reason why we haven't changed days, David, for when we used to buy, like, Ian Redford, 210,000 for Dundee. Cammy Fraser and Ian Ferguson, we bought him for Dundee. Gavin Ray came in for Dundee since you were talking about him. Craig Patterson, 210,000. They prices in Scottish football for players back then were all about that sort of price. I think Craig Patterson at that time was a record fee, but paid 225,000. But prices are inflated. The fees that players demand now, clubs demand. Listen, I've always got it. If Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts and I think their players worth a bit of money, then fair play. But it's got to be fair. It can't be when we come in, it's £2 million, then you see them go out the door for less than £1 million. And that's the argument that all bears always shouted about Scottish football, about us trying to go in and buy Scottish players for other clubs. We've really got to wait sometimes until their contracts are running down to try and get them. And you've seen the hassle we had with Hearts before, with John Souttar, wanting £1 million from him, etc. When his contract was running down, even with 6 months to go at the time. So I just want to ask Davey something, because I know he goes on other podcasts, and I know other podcasts don't talk about it, and we do on here, and I know it's getting late, we'll be wrapping up, but Davey, what about the state of Scottish football with referees at the moment? And I'll show you one. There was one, I put it on the site the day. There was a rugby tackle yesterday, believe it or not, on a Dundee player, and there's no booking whatsoever. So I was going to ask you, what do you actually think of the state of referees in Scotland and in our game now?
I don't think I'll say anything that most other Rangers supporters don't think the same as well. I thought that that decision Celtic got at Motherwell towards the end of last season shone a light on how utterly, I better be careful the way I put this, how utterly useless Scottish referees are. It was the talk of all over Britain. It was even the talk of Europe, that decision. And the thing that got me in the aftermath of it was the guy in charge of Scottish referees then come on the telly the next week and said that decision was right. If that is what the guy marking the homework of the rest of the referees is saying, then we are doomed. Because if the guy at the top is going to accept things that are so blatantly wrong, then where do we go? Where do you go from there? The refereeing in Scotland is at best incompetent and at worst favouring one team over everyone else. And in both of those cases, Scottish football needs to correct that. And if they don't, all it's going to do is there's going to be more titles, more trophies won by teams that shouldn't win them. I
see that Hearts have already, they maybe kicked up maybe a fuss than they did at the back end of last season, but they've put a statement out already about the Finlay sending off. I've not seen it. I saw it in the news last night. I think it's arguable whether he challenged for the ball or not.
The thing is, I think what their point is, the Motherwell Hibs game, Hibs got a penalty for something very similar. The Motherwell player was just kind of clumsy and clattered into the guy, and the penalty was given. He only got a yellow card. And I can see their point in saying that they're either both yellows or both reds. I can see that. But I'm not convinced they shouldn't both have been reds. So I don't know whether they'll win their appeal or not. I'd be doubtful.
All right. Listen, I'm going to go to you all, Davey, because you'll remember all these games and all these guys we talked about tonight. Davey, that period, 66, 69, I know you were a very busy man back then, but who was your favourite, mate? Was it John Gregg?
They were all my favourites. And I was busy because I was up there collecting all the bottles to take them back to the off-sales in a big sack. But no, all these guys were stars for me. Different era, different rules. You just got to take. But what David was saying and suicide about referees, we could go on and on and on about that. But nah, it is what it is. But I'll take John Gregg and that crew all day long.
Aye, it's aye, that's fair. I mean, Mr. Fox, who we spoke to earlier, Davey, his hero is Dave Smith, mate. He just loved Dave Smith and thought he was one of the most underrated players ever to play for our club. He thought he was a fabulous footballer.
Yeah, he was the first sweeper that I can ever remember seeing in Scottish football. I don't know if he was the first, but he's the first I remember. Tremendously composed, comfortable on the ball. It's almost the opposite of what a central defender was back then. I didn't see enough of him probably to be able to say whether sweeper was his best position or whether he could have played a wee bit further forward in midfield. But he was a really composed, cool footballer who could pass the ball. An excellent player.
He put one of the crosses in at Barcelona, didn't he?
He did. The second goal, yeah.
Aye. Mm-hmm. Aye. You know, aye, but it's fabulous names, fabulous memories for a lot of people. You know, it was a golden era, or should we say, it was a silver era. It could have been golden, Davey.
Yeah, well, it's called the nearly men for a reason.
Aye.
And let's be honest, what do we always say? We say simply the best. We say we're built on winning. We say the most successful club in football. We say seconds nowhere. So that team was a failure. Whether we like it or not, that team's a failure. But the books to try and put some context around about some of the reasons why they didn't fail, because talent-wise they were good enough to succeed.
Aye. Nearly men, south side. We know the feeling, huh? We know the feeling.
Aye. Like you say, some of the decisions by the managers and that, and like you saying, playing Roger Hind and stuff, going into a final and that, and then you said playing another Dave Smith. I think you said played further up, wasn't it? Or was it?
Dave Smith played number 10. He played as an
number
inside
10.
Aye.
So decisions like that.
He actually moved the team all round about, because Dave Smith moved from left half for number 6 up to number 10. John Gregg moved across from number 4 to number 6, and Sandy Jardine played at number 4. So you could argue that because the number of players that Simon couldn't play or wouldn't play, that we ended up weakening several areas of the team, not just not playing well forward.
Same when we went to Manchester. I remember the way we played throughout Europe with Walter, that when we got to Manchester, there was only one player we were really fearful. Shavin, who was a really good talent at that time. But the same again, we went to try and play the same sort of system that got us to the final. I mean, you looked around Manchester and that stadium was full of bears everywhere and the place was rocking. I just thought we should have come out and had a go. And I've always thought, like, you have a go, and if you're not good enough on the night, but you had a go, then you can say fair enough. But tactically, I think Walter stuck to his guns, and we've seen the strikers on the bench at the time, and then we started to bring them on, we go a goal down. But to me, when we got to that final, we should have had a go the first time in Manchester. But managers live by their decisions, Dave, and they think what's right, don't they?
Aye, I think... Sorry.
I'll throw in another one. We talked about Derek Johnson being fit, Billy Urquhart at centre forward.
Yeah. And saying that Johnson and Parley were both injured.
Aye. Well, Derek was on the bench, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Johnson was on the bench, yeah.
Aye, yeah.
No, but Billy Urquhart, wow.
I know. He gets signed because he scored a hat-trick for Inverness in a testimonial against us.
I know. Right, okay, well, Davey, I don't know where the 2 hours have went. Oh, Davey, last word for your good self, mate.
Absolutely amazing show. And it's been a pleasure, David, to listen to your knowledge. I just wish some of the other ones on the show could do the same. No having a go at you, you know what I mean?
I'll take that as the compliment it was intended.
I don't think it was a compliment to you, Davey. I think it was a stab in the dark.
No, I just like an amazing show, and I hope you don't keep. I hope you're not a stranger. I would love to hear you again. And all I'll say is, always remember, people, we are the people, and we don't surrender to nobody. Good night, guys, and God bless the Rangers.
Cheers, there.
Cheers, mate. Well, Jim, that subject you want to talk about, come on tomorrow night, mate, and we'll fit you in tomorrow night. Southside, last word for your good self, brother.
No, great to have David on. It was a great listen. I wish you every success with the book. I'll certainly get a copy. I'll get that done on Amazon and get a good read of it again, and wish you all the best with it, David, and I hope it's a success. Just like to thank everybody that's on the YouTube feed tonight. It's been a wee bit different tonight for the show, but I hope you have enjoyed it. You're on there every week, every night, listening to the show, and they're loyal and true on the YouTube feed, all the troops. So I'd like to thank them once again for listening to the show, and I hope you certainly enjoyed it, and a good bit of educational stuff for you out there. So as always, Ox, thanks for having us on, and we'll just soldier on, and hopefully we'll get a win on Thursday night, and that'll take us on to Sunday, and we'll hopefully give Hibs a doing at Ibrox, and then things will get back to the store, back to normal, mate.
Well, give you a wave on Wednesdays you pass me, and I'll give you a wave on Sunday when I see you, yeah?
Right, okay, I will do.
All right. All right, mate. Davey, last word, mate. Thanks very much.
No, honestly, I've enjoyed every minute. 2 hours talking about the Rangers. What else is there today on a Tuesday night?
By the way, we do this every night between 8 and 10. You're always welcome, bro.
Yeah, I think my wife might have something to say about that if I do this every night. It was great to be on.
You get you a good lawyer.
No, it was great to be on, and thanks again. And I enjoyed chatting to your guys that phoned in as well. Great stuff, and thanks for having me on. And if anybody does buy the book, I hope you enjoy it. And can I ask a wee favour before? No, you don't necessarily have to, but if you do buy it on Amazon, and if you like it, but only if you like it, could you please leave a review? And the reason I ask is because publishers look at previous reviews for books when they're deciding whether to take an author on for another book. I've started another book, and I don't know whether I'll get a publisher for it or not. So if I get some good reviews for this Amazon one, that might give me more of a chance to get a deal again.
All right, Bears, you've heard that. Help one of our own, yeah. Help one of our own. Davey, an absolute pleasure. Thanks for taking the time. I've got the book ordered myself, and I'm looking forward to reading it.
Fantastic.
Listen, it was great talking to you. Great talking to you before the show, and chatting to you, and great talking to you on the show, mate. And loved every minute. Thanks for taking the time, mate.
No, my pleasure. Seriously, enjoyed every minute.
Thanks to Davey. Thanks to Southside for joining us. All Davey, Smurf, and everybody who's trying to get through the night. Obviously, we're starting to a few subjects. Come back on tomorrow night, and we can talk about them. But thanks to everybody for listening. YouTube and Facebook and all the platforms out there. Thanks to Fox and Old School Blue for doing the technicals. But once again, thanks to David Hare for taking the time to come and join us with his book. You can get Monday the 10th, but you can get it the Snow and have it by tomorrow morning on Amazon if you order it now. The Nearly Men. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Rangers Radio will be back tomorrow night between 8 and 10 talking about all things Rangers. Take it away, Old School Blue.